extraordinary. Thank you very much for showing up to today's press briefing regarding Amber. I am YG Gay Lion, effective to the death penalty. An international human rights advocate, an organizer, and a member of the press. Today is a very sad historical day. The United States is executing, for the first time, a transgender woman in the state of Missouri, all in the name of justice. Meanwhile, there is no justice or due process that has happened in this case that shows justice. We have a judge, a corrupt judge, that has sentenced 6 people to the death penalty. A corrupt judge that did that in the sense that he could be re-elected and continue his corruption. Sadly, it happens that Amber is one of these individuals. The evidence was presented to the jury. The jury was deadlocked, and yet the judge felt the necessary demand to interject and interfere with this democratic process of having a jury decide whether this person is innocent or guilty. In the worst case scenario, it would have been a life sentence in prison. States around the U.S. are giving clemency, forgiving people during these holy days of Christmas, while Missouri watch an execution as if we are in Rome. None of it makes sense. They could claim the ladder of power in the name of justice. They claim it and take it, saying that they want to provide us democracy and justice. But when it comes to action, we don't have the right leaders to do this. Sadly, Missouri is one of 2 states where a judge can interfere with the jury's decision and change their decision to a death sentence if they are deadlocked. What kind of dictatorship is this? I left the Middle East and 2 death sentences without due process from Saudi Arabia, running away to a country for a better hope and dreams for a democracy where I have a chance of due process, where the jury decide my fate. And a corrupt judge comes by the end and pulls a rug from under me. I wouldn't want that for myself, nor I want that for anybody in this country. That's why we are here today. There is nothing worse than taking a human life away. And I know it because I've seen it since I was 10. I witnessed my first execution in Saudi Arabia of 3 men and 1 woman. We may act like it's normal because it's behind closed doors. We may ignore it because we do not see it. But because it doesn't touch your life, it doesn't mean that the injustice isn't happening anymore. So if the government and the governor is serious about their human rights and putting people before profit, putting people before government, putting people before laws, we would see them step up on a special holy day like today. It is 12 days of Christmas like we know it. Give them what they need. They refuse to call them by their chosen name. They say, we don't have such person named Amber on the death row. Not even giving them their basic right of recognition. Not even allowing them to describe who they are to the public. All in the name of justice, in the name of democracy, and the name of the United States of America. Yes, there's blood on the hands of America, and there's blood on this flag, and there's a flag. Until we revise our justice system, until we change the laws that put people last, until we revise all the evidence that's presented in front of the jury that this person was oppressed, that this person had the worst child, that this person was really ill when they made that mistake. And we believe that it is justice to take one's life in the name of justice. Since when killing a life is justice? Since when our actions will represent our values? I call on the governor today and now. You can hear me. I know you're in your office. I know you are working. So grant her some peace. And give her a life to live. And repent, even if it was life in prison. Give her the chance of being a better soul. Give her the chance to be someone that gives back to our lives. Why are we wasting all of our national resources on execution? Why are we wasting our taxes and federal granted money and the work that you have done so hard? You've worked so hard for this. And you sit by and watch your money being used to poison someone to death. And we call it justice. There's no justice in killing someone else. Dear Governor, I ran away from a dictatorship. That's right. This is what's happening in this country. And it's the biggest disappointment when you live at the bottom two states of the United States for justice, where a judge is the judge and the executioner. If he decides to be re-elected and want to continue to have his office, then he must look good in front of everyone and sentence people to death because we live in a red state. Being hard on crime is an excuse that you could flush down the toilet. We have seen your war on drugs, we have seen your war on crime, and it's been a failure for the last 50 years. So come out of your hole that you are in up there, and at least have a conversation with us. I would love to give the chance for the director of Missouri, Elise Max, to be able to give you some more details about Amber's case. and why she's a person who deserves to live and to have a second chance in the United States. I repeat, my name is Waji Gay Lion, a board member of the Missourians for Alternative to the Death Penalty. Elise Mass, please.
Thank you, Waji. Thank you for making the trip and for being part of us at MADP. We're really glad that Waji is here with us today, and we're glad that Waji is alive today because he was given asylum in the United States of America. He has a death sentence on his head in Saudi Arabia. And I hope we can do better. I will say this has been a very difficult year for people against the death penalty. We've had 2 executions in Missouri this year, and we have 2 planned for 2023. Missouri intends to kick off the year being the first to execute, and the first to execute someone who is a known trans woman in the United States. And we're sad, we know there are several constitutional issues with this case, but we just implore the governor to find mercy in his heart. Amber is a human. Amber is a gentle human. Everyone who knows Amber knows that Amber is not a future harm, and murdering Amber does not make Missouri a more safe place to live. And so we implore the governor today to find mercy in his heart. And we're not asking for him to open the doors and let Amber out. We're just asking for life. We're asking to turn your back on the culture of death and to grant life. Every day Amber is alive. She is touching people. She has a family. And instead of starting the year by creating murder family victim members out of the loved ones of Amber's, we need to start this year with life and with hope for all Missourians, including Missourians who had a bad day and made a terrible mistake. And we are going to take a little over 6,000 signatures up to the governor's office today. We'll be back on January 3rd if need be to deliver the rest of the signatures. But again, we're hoping that you will join us in this fight. You can still sign the petition at madpmo.org. And we're really hoping that the governor finds it in his heart. This execution is scheduled for the 10th day of Christmas. And we have not had an execution in America during the 12 days of Christmas in 40 years. So let's not be the first in this regard. Thank you.
Anybody else? Pretty good.
At this time, we'll be taking any questions from the press.
We can also use we're gonna. Hi, I'm Lauren Turman from KRCG 13. So I know you were talking about the signatures and understanding this has been a large year for Missouri in terms of death penalty and executions. Can you talk a little bit more about what this means for the future and what your organization is working for?
Okay, sure. Do you want me to come to tonight?
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
So Missouri nationally is one of very few handful of states that are actively executing, and we are doing it rapid fire. We have 19 individuals sentenced to death in Missouri, and I think 16 of them are eligible for execution. Most of them are at their end of appeals. So the good news is jury decisions for death are very few and far between. So most of them are at the end. We have 2 dates set for 2023, January 3rd for Amber McLaughlin, February 7th for Leonard Taylor. We have 2 requests for dates in the Missouri Supreme Court. So they're requested an execution date for Michael Tyson, as well as for John Johnson. And then there's another person who's sitting in the Supreme Court of the United States. As soon as they come out, our AG has been motioning for a date the very next day. So counting just the people that are going to run out of appeals, we're looking at having possibly 5 executions in 2023. That is going to put us neck to neck with Texas and Oklahoma. And so while states still have it on the books, the active executing, the rapid fire, what I call a killing spree, that's about to happen in Missouri is very unheard of, and we're just trying to resource up so that we can fight each individual clemency campaign, because while we want to abolish the death penalty, each clemency campaign has unique factors to it as to why that person deserves clemency. So we'll be back here January 4th, the session kicks off. We're going to try to whittle away. We're an abolition by attrition state, so we're going to try to narrow the scope and the use of the death penalty in Missouri so judges can't override hung juries. so that we're not executing people like Ms. Johnson that have intellectual disabilities, and so that we can expand the age of execution. Some states are moving their age to 21 because of what we know about brain development and children. So we're trying to narrow the scope of the use of the death penalty in Missouri, and then we're going to try to save individual lives, every single one of them, as those execution dates pop up.
And something that you just touched on was mental health, and particularly mental illness, and how that seems to be misjudged and rather ignored in a lot of the cases. Can you talk a little bit about how that feels and what that kind of means to see that kind of process through in terms of the death penalty?
Sure. I mean, we see that pretty much with every clemency campaign, there has been a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse that happened early in childhood for these individuals. Particularly the last two executions, you just see people that fell through the cracks through the education system, through the foster care system, these systems that are set up to support people. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, especially to people in our movement, but what we know is that hurt people hurt people. And so we really need to re-envision what public safety looks like in the state of Missouri. It doesn't look like punishment. It doesn't look like execution. It looks like supports early on. From birth, from preschool, we have to care about babies as they're born, as they turn into adults, so that we can live in a safe society, one that is really life-affirming. So we need to promote and resource what I would call life-affirming services, like preschool, like the free lunches, like mental health care, and that will help stop the stigmatism of it and make it more accessible for everybody. Did you want to add to that?
Well, it has been proven that focusing resources on rehabilitating our community is always going to help us have people get back to our country. And we're looking at one of the best democracies in the world. Very their prisons are not people that may be innocent, and even they may not be full of criminals either, because their crime rate is very low, and most of their resources is spent not on policing them, not on prisoning them either. It's spent on rehabilitating. If we refocus our resources and change our strategies from the war on crime and the war on drugs to helping our citizens, giving them a hand to become a better person so they can invest in our society, that money is way better spent than it is to police them and imprison them. We lose billions of dollars every single year to executions and prisons, whether they are private services or whether they are public services that are involved in our prison system in the United States. And if we don't change that, then the blame is on the system before it is on the individual.
And lastly, I just also want to ask you, you're talking about 6,000 signatures, right, that you're trying to attain. Can you walk me through just a little bit of what that process is going to look like, just in terms of collecting those signatures and trying to assess?
Yeah, usually when someone gets an execution date or before, we're preparing a petition that's going to kind of work with whatever the asks are going to be from the legal teams for clemency for the governor. So we started with Amber's petition actually only about probably 60 days ago, and we're able to get some 6,000 signatures on it. And those are just individuals, Missourians. There's a national organization, Death Penalty Action, that collects signatures. So those are folks that are just signing on board our letter asking the governor to grant clemency and commute to life without parole. So it depends on how long we have the petition out, how many signatures we get, and so forth. And it's been a very busy time of year. So we're hoping that we're going to get several thousand more between now and next Tuesday when the execution is scheduled, and we'll bring those on our way down to Montana back to the governor's office. So there's still time to sign it at madpmo.org.
Do you have anything else you want to ask?
I'm just gonna, if anybody else has any questions, I don't know, just make sure I have your names and positions, but I
That's
just,
fine.
see like that, I got a card up there.
We're done with the mic. Thank you very much.